Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Ray the Flying Squirrel here, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake for the Nintendo Switch. So last time, we essentially did manage able to take the pink ghost all the way up to the gravestone, and on top of all that stuff though, we can now able to do some more stuff here and there. In addition to that though, is about the fact that we can now able to proceed into the 5th dungeon, which before that, on the other hand though, we did somehow manage able to tackle through not 1, but 3 different tasks during the forms within the Dungeon Maker, thanks to Dumpy. And as a result, we did able to actually claim ourselves some pretty nifty rewards, ranging from the Secret Seashell, as well as the Piece of Heart. In addition to that, we also managed able to get ourselves the Mermaid Scale, so that way we can now proceed into the 5th dungeon, which obviously though we can now do just that. So today for this video, speaking of which though, when it comes to dungeons anyway, we're about to be tackling through the optional dungeon, which is only existent on the Game Boy Color version, including this remake as well. Because otherwise though, yeah, I think it's probably best if we save that particular topic, if we somehow make our way to the optional dungeon, especially concerning for the fact that, hey, I'm a completionist kind of guy. So anyway, let's get this thing to it, shall we? So yeah, a few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date of course there is the 24th of September today, in some cases in 2024 today, so naturally speaking though, we've only got about exactly 1 week left until we're about to be moving on to the 10th month in 2024, that is of course October. So because of that though, still I'm basically excited about October for this year though, not only because of the forms of Sonic X Shadow Generations, but as well as the forms of Super Mario Party Jamboree, and all other kinds of surprises here and there. So because of that though, yeah, I won't save that particular topic and do it at some point in a later time, but for now, we somehow made our way to this particular familiar spot, and basically though, remember where we somehow managed to look up on that particular book in the library familiar? Well, we need to able to follow these specific codes that usually we can able to actually access to the optional dungeon. So anyway, let's just go ahead and I failed to use the empty bottle to able to catch the fairy. Mind you about the fact it has been about 5 days ago since actually I've last played this game for sure. But hopefully though, we can able to actually catch up a little bit more when it comes to the forms of the uploading schedules department when it comes to this game in particular. Which, the reason why I say this is because remember how the fact that Pac-Man has already mentioned about this ever since on Sunday, about the fact that he will be definitely going to be finishing up every single aspect in terms of Pac-Man World for the Game Boy Advance, probably at some point on this coming Sunday, specifically though on the 29th of September most likely. Plus it's mainly because he will ask me to able to actually offer the extra video during at some point on Saturday. So because of that though, yeah, I feel a little bit more pumped for it though, especially concerning for the fact that, like I stated this before, about the fact that today's date of course there is the 24th of September today. So naturally speaking now, I'm gonna be happy about it, especially concerning for the fact that hopefully that will able to actually catch up a little bit more when it comes to, you know, certain parts coming up. So anyway, here we are in the forms of the optional dungeon. As you can tell, we've met again with the color dungeon. And as I said this before, originally though, back in 1998, when The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX re-release has first came out, basically though, it's about the fact that they added in a additional dungeon that's only accessible if you manage to play the game on the actual Game Boy Color, because otherwise though, it's about the fact that if you did manage to able to purchase the original release of 1993 version of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, this dungeon is not accessible, because otherwise though, about the fact that you can't able to actually play this dungeon at all. So because of that though, thankfully though, in Journey Phones Event 2019 remake, they somehow brought back the color dungeon, which fundamentally speaking now, it plays exactly like the forms of how it does it in the Game Boy Color version. So yeah, that's actually quite nice, especially concerning for the fact that obviously that was about the fact that the reward, if you do manage to able to complete the color dungeon, is actually a lot different, which as a result though, yeah, rather than just giving you a extra heart container or the extra instrument of Siren, so instead about the fact that you're able to actually have a choice between 2 different colored variants of that specific clothing of yours. So And by the way, for that particular room, as we've somehow come across into earlier, this is actually a good spot if you really want to get out of your way to able to actually grind as many of those rubies as you could, just to ensure for the fact that until at some point, there is that one particular item coming up on the shops anyway. It will cost about exactly 1,280 rupees. So naturally speaking, I was about the fact that, again, it's probably best if we're able to talk more about that during at some point in the later days to come. So anyways though, so as you can see about the fact that we did somehow deal with the forms of those guys right there, and thankfully though, trying to able to actually throw the spherical enemies right there was actually a lot more easy to able to throw it into the hole this time, because potentially speaking, I was about the fact that I felt it was a little bit too finicky at first glance on the original version of the game, well, specifically the Game Boy Color version, mind you. So thankfully though, on the Switch remake though, then obviously though, it makes things a lot more easier, especially concerning for the fact that, well, it's hard for me to explain because then again though, it has been about 5 days ago since I've last played this game for sure, but either way, so yet again with you know, certain treasure chests does manage to contain some of these small keys, so naturally we can able to progress onto different rooms and stuff like that. So anyway though, there are a few things I want to talk about is during this whole entire process anyway. Recently though, is about the fact that Disney's Epic Mickey Rebrushed has recently came out today for the Nintendo Switch, PC Steam, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X/S. So, relatively speaking, that's as far as I can usually say about this, I guess. Although, apart from the fact that it's kind of unfortunate for me that I'm probably not going to get the game after all, mainly because I really do miss the old days where, unlike defaults of how it does on the Wii original, that using the Wii remote is actually really dang good whenever you try to utilize the paint or thinner, but that's not the case this time around though on the Switch version, because instead we have to utilize gyroscope and all that stuff rather than having the exact same control style as in not only Super Mario 3D All-Stars in the forms of in Super Mario Galaxy, but it's also with the forms of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury if you manage able to tap into something like, for instance, with glowing blocks that you can able to actually use as platforms to progress in one of those levels in World 2, for instance. So anyway, so here's the next sub-boss right there we're about to take on, and basically though, that's how the magic powder decides to come into play, and basically though, if you use the magic powder on this sub-boss right there, then you can obviously have a chance to able to keep on, well, slashing your sword with it. So, and obviously though, it's about the fact that you do need to watch out for the electricity, so to be expected, much like the forms of how it does on regular enemies like these. So, anyways though, there's also another thing I want to mention about this, potentially speaking now, and that's what appears to be about the fact that I totally forgot to mention about this, actually, since in about a couple of days ago, potentially, though. And that's what appears to be about the fact that, yes, indeed, we technically got ourselves our brief new clips on Mario Luigi Brothership that shows about the fact that not only the actual game is going to take place, but it's also about the fact that one of these bros attack items was actually brand new. Like, for instance, is about the fact that there is this particular cool machine about the fact that you can able to actually create thunder clouds in order to able to designate enemies and stuff like that, and you have to simply alternate between B and A, and once the actual gauge is almost about to full up, basically though you can press the X button to able to cause the thunder to strike, to destroy all sorts of enemies and stuff like that, which I'm very curious to know how that's going to play out to be, but I'm sure about the fact that we will still see the green shell make its return ever since in the past Mario Luigi games, since I would say Paper Jam most likely though. Well, mind you about the fact I haven't exactly touched upon Mario Luigi series for quite some time since Bowser's Inside Story remake, despite the fact I still couldn't be bothered able to actually complete Bowser Jr.'s journey in addition to Bowser's Minions, because I'm not a big fan of the forms that particular side adventure to me though, but that's just mainly because not only about the fact that you can't able to actually do anything aside from select quite a few menus and stuff like that for aids, all that stuff, but it's also kind of luck based too if you decide able to go through tougher battles, and most notably though is all about grinding itself as well. So because of that though, yeah, I'm not too fussed about it, but either way, Oh goodness, I just realized we've now come across into this particular hardest room of this particular dungeon to me though, and that's of course the 9-grid switch. So suffice to say though, is about the fact that hopefully this dungeon won't give me that much trouble, unlike the forms of how it does it on some aspects. Well, mind you about the fact that, well, we can easily manage able to deal with this dungeon no problem, especially that now we've actually got ourselves some more hearts and stuff like that, and also we've somehow finally got ourselves the map. So either way though, so let's just see what's beyond in this room here. It's just more of those guys, and this time about the fact that we can now able to deal with 4 of these guys. So potentially speaking though, yeah, if you managed able to put those little spherical enemies in the corresponding holes and all that stuff though with the correct color, that actually signifies you somehow managed to deal with these guys. So but anyways though, in addition to that though, is about the fact that out of nowhere, we're about to be getting a yet another PlayStation 5 system, and that's the reason for this particular discussion I would like to point things out. That's mainly because, well, obviously though, is about the fact that this year will mark the 30th anniversary of the PlayStation's existence, you know, when they first made PlayStation, and as a result though, gee, it's been 30 years since PlayStation has first existence. So yeah, since in 1994, around the exact same year as in the Sega Saturn, despite the fact that the Sega Saturn was actually kind of a flop. Well, it is pretty underrated to me though, like it does have some very interesting titles, but aside from all that stuff though, it doesn't have enough support after for about a few years or so. Like it only lasted for about approximately 4 years or something like that. Mind you, it did well in Japan though, so I guess that's that. So anyways though, so let's go ahead and use the bow and arrow right here to able to change between the red switch or the blue switch. So naturally though, we somehow made our way to the boss fight in the color dungeon. So yeah, it doesn't seem that's gonna be quite lengthy here and there, so we can potentially try to able to deal with this guy. So because of that though, thankfully though with Rock's Feather, then we should able to deal with this guy no problem. Hard hit Beetle. So either way though, so let's go ahead and keep on jumping and slash his sword at the right exact moment in time, and potentially speaking though, he'll be easily being taken down, no problem. So there we go. Color dungeon is completed. So because of that though, so hopefully we're most able to catch that particular fairy with the empty bottle, I'm hoping. So yeah, let me just go and quickly do this quickly, so just to ensure I will save the fairy up until later on in the game. So thankfully though, we somehow succeed this time around. So there's also a portal right there in case if you want to go back, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So anyways though, so here we've meet up with the forms of this particular fairy right here, and basically though is about the fact that we can actually have a choice between both the 2 different colors of your mall clothing. So there's the red and blue. Red represents your attack and blue represents defense. So because of that, now here's the thing though, is that do you guys even remember back in 2022 when Tiana did somehow did tackle through the Game Boy Color version of Link's Awakening DX, that she did somehow choose the red mall that actually represents, you know, attack power. However though, on the Switch version this time around though, I'm actually going to be going into a different route this time. And what do I mean by that though? I'm actually going to be going for defense weight this time by selecting the blue mall this time. Because after all, we've already seen the red one since on the, you know, the Game Boy Color version. So I figure on the Switch remake, it's now time for the blue mall this time. So just to ensure for the fact I can easily guarantee to be able to actually get myself a much more comfortable experience when it comes to dealing with certain enemy encounters like Moblins and stuff like that, and especially noticeable with some tougher bosses as well later on though. So yeah, that's essentially how I roll with this, especially concerning for the fact that, well, gee, I can't even believe it's been about, you know, 2 years ago since we've last did Link's Awakening, specifically the Game Boy Color DX re-release, but hey, at least as far as I can usually go for this particular method as far as this is concerned. So as you can see, we've now decided able to wear the blue mall. So as I said before, that the defense is actually a lot more improved. So naturally speaking, if you get hit by certain enemies or anything else like that, you lose less your bit of your hearts. So that's essentially, I'm actually going to be going for that option this time around, as opposed to do the offense method with, with Red Maul, because otherwise though, it'll just be incredibly overpowered if you manage able to choose the Red Maul, although it's pretty cool and satisfying, don't get me wrong, but it's just about the fact I just like to able to go for a different route, depending on what version of the game I was going to be playing through, of course. So anyway, let's get back into the forms of this discussion about the forms of PlayStation is about to celebrate its 30th anniversary, and what do I mean by that though? Not only about the fact that we're going to be seeing one PlayStation 5 system, but two PlayStation 5 systems, and those two in particular are the most recent models, which there are the Slim version and the upcoming Pro version. So no matter what though, yeah, it's gonna be ridiculously pricey if the actual specific limited edition systems between both PlayStation 5 Slim as well as PlayStation 5 Pro, the 30th anniversary edition, mind you, that is going to get skyrocketing if, assuming of course about the fact that if someone else out there was about to able to try to sell that particular system or anything else potentially speaking. So because of that though, yeah, and from the look of it though, similar to the forms of how it does it back in 2014, where they managed to able to did the 20th anniversary of PlayStation, since that PlayStation 4 was still around during that time. And obviously though, it's about the fact that they obviously trying to go for the grey color scheme on the actual skin of the console itself. In addition to that though, also much like the forms of how it does on the 20th anniversary console edition of the PlayStation 4, that obviously though the PlayStation logo brand is actually original, like, going back into the forms of not only PlayStation 1 days, but as well as PlayStation 2 era as well. So generally speaking, we can still see that familiar red P alongside with multitude of colors for an S, ranging from blue, green, and yellow. So yeah, that's actually very iconic, all things considered. And also the DualSense controller was also going to be in colorized as well. So relatively speaking, we can able to see gray colored bits on it, in addition to the forms of that familiar PlayStation logo brand in multitude of colors. And in addition to that though, we are able to actually see multitude of colors on these corresponding buttons, like green triangle, red circle, blue X, and pink square. So yeah, that's actually pretty awesome to me. Although, mind you, it might be hard to come by, especially concerning for the fact that, oh, I just also realized about something. They also decided able to include some other goodies as well, ranging from the sticker, alongside with the forms of that very peculiar accessories, which I forgot able to mention about that. And on top of that, they're also going to be able to include the USB-C charging cable to be able to actually match up to a replica of the actual PlayStation controller, which I think is actually pretty cool. They did the same thing that happened during the forms of in 2018, when PlayStation did somehow reveals the PlayStation Console Mini. So as a result though, it's kind of interesting, except your noticeable difference is this time, no longer it's going to be on USB, but rather USB-C, because USB-C is much more relevant in during forms of in the future generations to come, especially concerning for the fact that hopefully we'll find out more about it during at some point in November, specifically in November 21st, at least what I found out for the actual release date for it. So because of that though, in just about roughly about 2 weeks after the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to be releasing, so yeah, it's going to be quite something else entirely. And relatively speaking, I was about the fact I still have no idea if I might as well get my chance to get the PlayStation 5 after all, because after all though, it's about the fact that it might be not possible for me to get it at this point in time, especially concerning for the fact I'm still begging for, with Nintendo Switch 2 or Nintendo Switch successor is going to be almost approaching at some form or another, whilst the forms of Nintendo Switch 1's lifespan will be ended by then. So either way though, I suppose time will tell, but either way. The next thing I want to mention about is about the fact that we actually got ourselves, I would classify for saying, the final trailer for the likes of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero recently, ever since it joined in forms of about a week ago or something like that. I would classify for saying exactly 5 days to be more specifically, and as a result though, are you kidding me? I was expecting to get that piece of heart, but of course realistic physics decided able to mess me up beyond belief. So, oh well, we'll just keep on trying, especially because, you know, we've got plenty of rubies at this point, so it's a good thing we did somehow grind as many of those rubies as we could. So anyway, back into what I was saying about the forms of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and yes, actually as it turns out, the character roster has now officially been completed. So, how many characters there are in terms of playable characters in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero? Especially considering for the fact that after all, we've only got about a couple of days left now until that particular game will be releasing for reals. So either way though, as far as I'm aware, they did indeed manage able to include the majority of the playable characters for not only from Dragon Ball Super, alongside with the forms of movie adaptations, or specifically movie specials. So yeah, it seems pretty cool though, especially considering for the fact that I was so shocked to see Dr. Wheelo from the likes of the, I would classify for saying strongest of the world, movie special or something like that, is actually going to make a comeback ever since enduring forms of in Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3. So yeah, it's actually pretty cool to see him returning, and this time around though it's all cel shaded rather than just, well, made by, anything else potentially. So, well, mind you, it has been about quite a few days since I actually have mentioned something relates to Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, or perhaps even maybe that some toys else, or Maxi has already mentioned about brief moments of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero since roughly about a couple of days ago or something. So, either way though, also as far as I'm aware, there's a secret seashell and... Are you kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me? I just can't even believe that secret seashell just somehow popped out of the claw, and as a result though, it just got away. So this might actually be a bit of a pain, although thankfully though, we did somehow manage to able to save the game during this whole process, especially concerning for the fact that I refused to able to actually run out of rubies at this point in time. But anyway, speaking of which though, is about the fact that there's also the PlayStation Portal remote player for the 30th anniversary limited edition as well, and usually relatively speaking though, it's pretty much standard for the most part, especially considering for the fact that it's almost exactly like DualSense, except the fact that you do have a screen, similar to the forms of how it does it on not only the Wii U for the Wii U gamepad, but as well as the Nintendo Switch, if you manage to play the game or play a console on the go, and all that stuff. So anyway though, now in terms of the forms of you know, like Dragon Ball Sparking Zero and stuff like that, the amount of playable characters we can able to expect to come across into, I believe we're about to be getting a grand total of 182 playable characters, which is quite massive, all things considered. Like, I almost first thought about the fact they'll have the exact same amount of those playable characters from the likes of in Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3, but actually as it turns out, they go far from beyond, thanks to the forms of the existence of Dragon Ball Super, which as a result though, understandably so yeah, it seems quite a larger amount, so it may look like between both Dragon Ball Sparking Zero alongside with Super Mario Party Jamboree, they may look like those two games in particular will be releasing in October. They seem to able to actually have massive amount of character roster, which I think is actually pretty cool, even though about the fact that, one thing I did not expect, about the fact that we can able to see for the first time ever, that Goku, teenager counterpart, was actually playable too. So I was like, okay, that was very unexpected, because I was assuming about the fact that they'll try to able to include certain playable characters based off from the original Dragon Ball series. Well, actually, as it turns out, is about the fact, I don't know if that's the case or something like that. Well, that again, though, is about the fact that we've only just got about a couple of days left until Dragon Ball Sparking Zero will be releasing, alongside with the forms of, you know, Super Mario Party Jamboree. In addition to that, though, only 2 more days to go until the Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom will be releasing. So because of that, though, I still cannot wait wait able to play that game, especially concerning for the fact I have heard about great things about it though. Also, for some reason, I'm having a hard time trying to get this godforsaken secret seashell right there because, you know, real physics and all that stuff though just makes things a lot more challenging compared to the forms of how it does it on the Game Boy/Game Boy Color version. So yeah, this might take me about a couple of tries to able to not only trying to get this godforsaken secret seashell and hope to, God forbid, not to let that particular secret seashell just somehow go out of the claw again. But thankfully though, we've somehow succeeded. So either way though, before we end off here, I need to go ahead and grab some more rubies, so just in case I refuse to run out of it. So jeez Louise, it took me about a couple of tries to able to get this godforsaken secret seashells on, well, at least one of them anyway, in this particular claw machine game. So yeah, it feels like we keep on playing this particular minigame a lot in this remake, by the way, just because of those specific rewards that was not found in the original game, including the Game Boy Color re-release. So that's as far as I can usually say about this, I guess. So anyway, also, about the fact that when it comes to other stuff I would like to mention about, and that's what appears to be about the fact that yes indeed, we've somehow unlocked the next cosmetic character for Sonic Dash recently. And this time we did somehow indeed unlock Detective Vector. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell, especially considering for the fact that at this point in time, I'm definitely gonna have to able to take a massive break while playing through Sonic Dash until with you know, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the movie, is about to be coming out, and approximately though is about the fact that they're trying to able to include Movie Shadow, just for sure for the fact that I'm probably not gonna miss this out, especially concerning for the fact I'm just so looking forward to playing as probably Movie Shadow for the sake of Sonic Dash once that particular event is gonna be up, or something like that, during at some point by the end of this year, if possible. So either way though, there's also another thing I want to classify for mentioning about this actually, is about the fact that out of nowhere, that Five Nights at Freddy's 3 movie news has recently turned up. Like as a result though, Five Nights at Freddy's movie 3 is currently in very early development at this time, and I was like, are you kidding me? I'm just assuming about the fact that they'll try to save some time, just to ensure for the fact that we'll have to wait until about a couple of years or so, but usually it's hard for me to explain because it doesn't give any further details on that specific part has been given. So because of that though, despite the fact that the second Five Nights at Freddy's movie is already on the actual workings, so yeah, I've got nothing else to say about this, I guess. Although, there's also another thing that's worth mentioning for actually. There are quite a few games has already recently celebrated its 20th anniversary since 2004. Like for instance, happy 20th anniversary of the game's release of Dance Dance Revolution Extreme for the PlayStation 2, Final Fantasy VII 11, Chains of Mafia, not only on PlayStation 2, but as well as PC Windows as well. In addition to that though, Second Sight for the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox, as well as the original Star Wars Battlefront for PlayStation 2, Xbox, and Windows PC, alongside with the forms of Star Wars Trilogy, Apprentice of the Force for, I have no idea what that is. And on top of that, there's also Disney's Kim Possible 2, Dragon's Demise, and also Katamari Damacy from the PlayStation 2. I apologize for that particular misbudged pronunciation of that game. And finally though, Rome Total War has also celebrated its 20th anniversary for PC Windows. So with that being said folks, is that we get endings off this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake for the Nintendo Switch, is that we're going to be proceeding to the 5th dungeon. So I'll see you guys on Thursday. Later fellas.